Hi there, I'm Myrna Loy and of Blackbright News, can be found at www.issueissuu.com/Blackbright News. The content is free of charge to read, and only if you download it you have to pay a couple of quid, I think. But yeah, today's video is about mass immigration. Is it propaganda? Is it fallacy? Is it fact? Or is it somewhere in between? Now, the IOM sent out this promotional video a couple of years ago. It's talking about 244 million. We had to be welcoming 244 million migrants into the country. I think it was to the USA, regardless of where they're heading. A couple of years ago, we had them do the same with Brexit. They had this big poster of all these immigrants coming to the UK, when in fact they were Syrians escaping from Syria after the war, not even coming to England. So we cannot rely on those images and that propaganda, number one. Also, the reason why we can't rely on that propaganda, I'm not saying there aren't immigrants or there isn't mass immigration, because there have been incidences where there have been, and they're still in the respective countries. But the fact of the matter is there's so many different definitions of a migrant or an immigrant that it's not easy to count who's an immigrant, who's a migrant, unless you're just going to go by the colour of their skin or the fact that they have an accent. And I think that is the crux of this situation. Now, what I did, I actually recorded the different definitions of a migrant, and I'm just gonna let you listen to the different definitions, and then you can understand why it's so difficult to determine what's what. To understand if mass migration is a fallacy, it's important to understand that there is no one definition of a migrant. So I'm going to let you know the different definitions of a migrant so you can understand why I say this. Now, the Migration Observatory's definition of a migrant is defined as foreign-born, foreign nationals, or people who have moved to the UK for a year or more. The International Passenger Survey, which is IPS, defines all people of all nationalities as migrants, including UK nationals as well as EU nationals, so long as they are crossing national boundaries with the intent of staying for at least a year. The Wikipedia definition of a migrant is a person who moves from one place to another in order to find work or better living conditions voluntarily. The International Organization for Migration, IOM's definition of a migrant, defines a migrant as a person who is moving or has moved across an international border or within a state away from his or her habitual place of residence, regardless of 1, the person's legal status, 2, whether the movement is voluntary or involuntary, 3, what the cause for the movement is, or 4, irrespective of the reason for migration or legal status. UNESCO's definition of a migrant. The term migrant can be understood as any person who lives temporarily or permanently in a country where he or she is not born and has acquired some significant social ties to this country. A person can be considered as a migrant even when she or he is born in the country, if the parent is not British born. So, UNHCR's definition of a migrant. Well, they're talking about refugees. Refugees are persons who are outside their country of origin for reasons of feared persecution, conflict, generalized violence, or other circumstances that have seriously disturbed public order and, as a result, require international protection. The refugee definition can be found in the 1951 Convention and regional refugee instruments, as well as the UNHCR's statutes. Migrants can be defined as foreign birth by foreign citizenship or by the movement into a new country. The definition of a migrant used by most official sources includes many British citizens and others whose right to work and access to services in the UK are not determined by immigration controls alone. Sorry about that. Many foreign-born people are also British citizens and do not count as migrants if defined by nationality, nor are they subject to immigration controls, but defined as migrants by IPC. Definition of a migrant is also called an immigrant, long-term international migrant, asylum seeker, foreign national, expatriate. So, I'm going to leave it there and get back to...
Yes, so I think that made it a bit easier to, rather than me read it out from a piece of paper. So if you're going by the IOM's definition, then I'm a migrant. Even though I'm born here, even though I'm born in the UK, I'm a migrant because my mother came to the country. And it seems to depend on whose definition we're talking about. If we're going through the International Passenger Survey, they describe everybody from the EUs to everybody who crosses the national border. They describe them, they define them as migrants. Now, if you're thinking, when the IOM sent out that promotional video about 244 million migrants coming into the country, Brexit did something similar when they had this picture of all these Syrians. I think I mentioned it before. But what they're talking about is migrants who are in different countries all over the world. They're not just talking about migrants that are coming to the UK or the USA. For example, they're talking about, I think there's 1.3 million British expats living outside the UK. Those are included. The 9 million Americans who are not in America but living elsewhere, they're included. So it's every possible person throughout the world who are not living in the country they were born are considered migrants, and that is where that 244 million came from. So don't get all your knickers in a twist and think you've got 244 million people coming into your country, invading your country. There's not only that. On the one hand, there's a lot of conflicting messages here. On the one hand, the government is talking about the invasion and all these immigrants coming over. And on the other hand, they're talking about they need the immigrants because you know why? They never expected people to live longer than 65. They thought they'd all be dead because that used to be the life expectancy years and years ago. But now you're finding that the life expectancy is more like 85 and 100 in some cases. And what's happened is they're going to run out of money by 2030. They're not going to have no pension or no social security to pay anybody out. So what they want, even though they're not telling you this, they want the immigrants to come in here because when the immigrants come in, they are working, they are paying taxes so that eventually you'll get your pension and you'll get your benefits because they want the young ones. They don't want the old ones. They don't want the ones that are not working, but they want the able-bodied ones who are coming in under the legal status of refugee. That's what they call the replacement migration policy. They're replacing Europeans with refugees. And they want the refugees to come over. They're probably being low paid. It's kind of a legalised human trafficking type of thing, only that those people are being forced from their country into the UK or into America or wherever they go. And so they're using them to pay for your pensions and your benefits, because otherwise, if those immigrants don't come in, you're stuffed. You're not going to have a pension because the government can't afford it. So on the one hand, I know people are screaming about mass immigration, but mass immigration has come in influxes over a period of time. And, you know, they create wars sometimes, or fabricate wars, so that they can get people to come in and work and put money into the tax pot. So, yeah, I understand on the one hand you want to eliminate immigration and you want to get rid of all the immigrants. But there are so many definitions. So now I don't know what's what, to be honest. I mean, I don't even know where we can go with this kind of situation, because there's a lot of media controversy. There's a lot of angst because of what the government is saying they will do and what they're really doing, and their underlying agenda. I think they've got this Agenda 21 that's got something to do with the aging population and the failing population, and they're living too long and they're not really able to produce anything because they need productivity. They need productivity in order to make money. Otherwise, the country is going to go into a recession, and it's heading that way now. So they're panicking. And they're panicking because, you know, on the one hand, they've said, oh, look, we're going to reduce immigration. But on the other hand, they don't want to. So they're indoctrinating people to make them believe that they're helping all these people coming from other countries, you know, knowing that that's going to disturb people who do not understand the goal of the agenda of the government. Because can you imagine, you're voting to reduce immigration, and then you hear that all these Syrians are coming over, you know, whoever's coming over, whoever they are, whether they're Syrians, whether they're from Libya, whether they're from different parts of Africa, whether they're from different parts of the Caribbean, you don't care about that. So, but it's weird because on the one hand, the government is letting us accept them coming over, and they know it's going to cause resentment. They know it's going to cause hostility. But at the same token, they need these people. But I think they're afraid to say that they need them. I'm sure, I mean, I guess there's some kind of diplomatic protocol along with this. They can't really say, oh yeah, we're going to bring all these immigrants in, so at least we know that we're going to get our pension into our old age, because a lot of them are in their 40s and they want their pension when they're 60s, 70s. So they're thinking, okay, we'll get some young immigrants in, or refugees or whatever, we'll put them to work. They have to pay taxes, and so it'll go in the tax pot. And they get rid of them quick enough if they ain't working, don't worry. So they're going to the tax pot. That means that we're sorted. But the problem is that they've told a lie. They've told the public that they're going to reduce immigration. So what they're doing now is that they're creating targets and trying to get rid of people under the guise that this is what they're doing. But what they're really doing is focusing on the people who are not working, who are unproductive, and getting rid of those under the guise of reducing immigration. But some of those people, they don't warrant being deported or removed or imprisoned or whatever it is they're doing with them. A lot of them, they're imprisoning them because they know once they imprison them, they can deport them if they're not born in the country. And did you know that even if you are a citizen, if you're not white, you can lose your citizenship? Even if you're a citizen. Can you imagine it? They reckon that you have to do some heinous crime, but I bet you they'll find some other reason not to take your citizenship away. I mean, somebody like me, I don't know where I'd go, because to be honest, I'm born here, my kids are born here, so that'd be pretty difficult. But I think I don't know why they just don't have it. If they make an easy definition of a migrant or an immigrant, instead of having all these fancy names and these fancy terms about coming from one country and, you know, sort of settling in another country for a year, just say an immigrant or a migrant is somebody who is not white and who has an accent. Done. Because that is the fact of the matter. But the problem is that they need the immigrants, because the immigrants are the ones who are paying your pensions and who are paying your social security benefits when you get older. So I'm just putting it out there. Bye for now.